Millions of years before humanity ever existed, Earth belonged to giants. The ground trembled beneath their footsteps, the air vibrated with their roars, and the sky belonged to creatures with wings wider than a house. It was a time of raw power and endless life, a paradise that seemed eternal. But nothing in nature lasts forever. The late Cretaceous period, a world of jungles, volcanoes, and oceans glowing under a red sun. The atmosphere was thick, humid, and filled with the smell of plants, salt, and thunder. Giant ferns swayed in the wind, while insects the size of birds danced through the heavy air. Across vast plains roamed herds of triceratops, their horns glinting in the light of the setting sun. And somewhere in the shadows, a predator watched. Silent, patient, unstoppable. Tyrannosaurus Rex, the undisputed king of Earth. For millions of years, life had found balance. Predators hunted, prey adapted, forests burned and grew again. Continents drifted slowly apart, and the rhythm of the planet pulsed like a heartbeat. But high above this living world, beyond clouds, beyond the thin veil of blue, something ancient was moving. Something that had wandered through the cold darkness of space for millions of years. It was a rock, 10 kilometers wide, older than the Earth itself. It spun silently through the void, carrying the memory of dying stars. For eons it drifted between worlds, a ghost of creation, waiting for its moment. And then, one day, gravity called its name. The asteroid turned toward a small blue planet, drawn by invisible hands of fate. It accelerated, falling faster and faster, pulled into a deadly dance it could never escape. As it approached, the night sky of Earth began to glow. Faintly at first, then brighter than 1,000 suns. But on the surface, no one knew. The dinosaurs went on with their lives. A triceratops mother led her young through the forest. A T-Rex hunted near a swamp. Flying reptiles circled above the cliffs. The air buzzed with life, unaware that its final day had already begun. Hours before the impact, small flashes appeared in the night sky. Fragments of stone burning in the atmosphere. Some creatures looked up, confused. Others hid, sensing something wrong. The world felt it. The air, the oceans, even the ground itself seemed to hold its breath. And then, in one terrible moment, day turned into light. The asteroid entered the atmosphere at over 20 kilometers per second. The air exploded ahead of it, heating to thousands of degrees. In less than a second, it became a ball of fire brighter than the sun. It struck the shallow sea near the coast of what is now Mexico, and the Earth screamed. The impact released energy equal to 10 billion nuclear bombs. Mountains melted. The ocean vaporized. The shockwaves circled the planet within hours. Every living thing within 1,000 kilometers died instantly. But that was only the beginning. The true death came after the silence. When the fire stopped, the sky turned black. Dust and ash rose into the atmosphere, blocking the sun. For months, then years, the world was trapped in darkness. Temperatures dropped. Plants died. Without plants, the herbivores starved. Without herbivores, the predators followed. And yet, even as life collapsed, something small endured. In the cracks of the dying Earth, tiny mammals huddled underground. Birds, the last descendants of dinosaurs, found shelter among the ruins. They waited, silent, through the endless night. The age of the dinosaurs had ended, but the story of life had only just begun. When the firestorm ended, silence fell upon the Earth. It was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of death. The air was filled with dust so thick that sunlight could no longer reach the ground. Days turned into darkness. The world grew cold. Ash clouds stretched around the planet, turning blue skies into endless gray. Temperatures dropped below freezing, even in the tropics. The seas, once alive with color, turned black. The waves slowed. The coral reefs died, and the great creatures of the deep drifted in stillness. Volcanoes continued to erupt, adding more poison to the air. Sulfuric rain fell, burning the forests that had survived the first fires. Rivers boiled with acid. The air stung like glass. For the first time in 160 million years, the age of giants was over. In the ruins of this world, the mighty dinosaurs began to vanish. Herbivores starved first, the triceratops, the hadrosaurs, the armored titans that once ruled the plains. Without plants, they collapsed by the thousands, their skeletons scattered across the land. The predators followed soon after. Without prey, their hunger turned to madness. The tyrannosaurs, the most powerful hunters on Earth, became shadows in a dying world. The forests grew silent. The only sounds were the winds, screaming through the empty valleys and the cracking of frozen lakes. Lightning struck above a lifeless horizon. Earth had entered its longest night, but life is stubborn. In the ashes of destruction, the smallest survivors endured. Tiny mammals, no larger than your hand, hid in burrows, feeding on roots and insects. Birds huddled together in the remains of fallen trees. Some reptiles crawled into caves, slowing their hearts to survive the cold. Deep in the ocean, where sunlight had never reached, strange creatures continued to move. Blind fish, worms that fed on the heat of the earth. Life found a way. Clinging to the edges of existence, months turned into years. The ash slowly began to settle. The sun, hidden for so long, started to shine again, weak at first, like a dying candle. But it was enough. Enough to warm the air. Enough to wake the earth. Rain returned, washing away the soot. Rivers began to flow. Seeds that had lain dormant for years broke open and reached for the faint light. Mosses and ferns spread across the blackened ground, turning gray into green. And then, one morning, the first bird sang. Its song echoed across a silent planet, a sound that had not been heard in years. It was fragile, soft, but full of hope. It was proof that life, no matter how broken, always rises again. The dinosaurs were gone, but their blood still flowed. In feathers, in wings, in every bird that would ever fly above the earth. The world had changed forever, but the heartbeat of life had never stopped. It had only paused, waiting for the dawn. When the long winter finally ended, the world was almost unrecognizable. The once lush forests of the Cretaceous were gone, replaced by empty plains and the ghostly remains of trees burned to ash. The oceans were silent, the land scarred, and the sky pale and thin. But beneath this silence, something new was stirring. From the soil enriched by death, life began again. The first green shoots pushed through the blackened ground, moss, ferns, and small plants that could survive in poor soil. Slowly, they spread across continents, painting the gray wastelands in shades of green. The air filled once again with the scent of rain and growth. Earth was healing. Without the dominance of dinosaurs, new creatures took the stage. Small mammals, which had once lived in the shadows of giants, began to explore the open world. They were fast, curious, adaptable. Some lived in trees, others hunted insects in the night. They were fragile compared to the dinosaurs, but clever. And in a changing world, cleverness meant survival. Birds, the last heirs of the great reptilian dynasty, filled the skies. Their songs echoed where once there had been roars. Feathers shimmered where scales once glistened. The age of monsters was over. The age of intelligence had begun. Rain fell for centuries, carving rivers and lakes into the wounded earth. Volcanoes quieted. The air grew warm again. The oceans slowly came back to life. Plankton bloomed, fish returned, and coral reefs began to rebuild. What had been a planet of fire became once more a planet of water. New plants evolved, flowering species that colored the land in reds, yellows, and purples. Insects adapted too, spreading pollen from one bloom to another, building the first true ecosystems of the new world. Every death had fed this rebirth, and high above it all, the sky was clear once again, blue and endless. The same sky that had once watched the fall of giants now shone over creatures no bigger than a hand. The earth was different, quieter, but alive. In the ashes of extinction, evolution found its strength. Life learned to bend, not break, to change, not fade. From tiny mammals would come apes. From apes, humans. And though the giants of the past were gone, their legacy lived on in the bones, in the DNA, in the heartbeat of every living thing, because extinction is not the end. It is a doorway. One world closing, another opening. 66 million years after that terrible day, we walk upon the same earth. The air we breathe carries the dust of that impact. The carbon in our bodies was once part of those forests. The calcium in our bones once belonged to the dinosaurs themselves. We are the children of catastrophe, born from destruction, shaped by survival, and every sunrise is a reminder. Life always finds a way back to the light. Time passed. 66 million years, a blink in the eyes of eternity. The earth turned, healed, and forgot the sound of thunderous footsteps. But the memory of the giants was never truly lost. Deep beneath layers of rock and soil, their bones slept, silent witnesses to an age of power and beauty. Each fossil a frozen heartbeat, each skeleton a whisper of what once ruled the world. For millions of years, they waited in the dark until curious eyes uncovered them again. When humans appeared, the earth was already ancient. We built fires, raised tools, and looked to the stars, unaware that beneath our feet lay the remains of creatures who once ruled the very ground we walked upon. And when we finally found them, we named them dinosaurs. Terrible lizards. But they were never truly terrible. They were magnificent. Through fossils, we learned their shapes, their battles, their lives. We saw the marks of claws, the shells of eggs, the footprints left in ancient mud. And in every discovery, we saw a reflection of ourselves, creatures born to dominate, destined to fall, yet always striving to live. The story of the dinosaurs is not one of tragedy, but of transformation. They did not simply die. They became part of everything that followed. Their bones became the mountains. Their dust became the soil. Their legacy became the spark of evolution that led, one day, to us. Every bird that spreads its wings is a descendant of a survivor. Every feather that glows in sunlight carries the memory of scales that once shimmered under a Cretaceous sky. Every heartbeat, yours, mine, all, echoes from that ancient rhythm that began long before humanity. We look back at them not as monsters, but as ancestors, teachers in the endless story of life. They remind us that even the greatest empires of nature can fall. But from their fall comes renewal. From their silence, song. The earth still turns, just as it did when they walked upon it. The stars above are the same stars they saw, burning with the same cold light. And perhaps, somewhere in another corner of the galaxy, another world is learning the same lesson, that nothing lasts forever. And yet nothing ever truly ends, because life, fragile, fierce, unstoppable, always finds a way to begin again.